All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. Thank you very much for joining us today. I am joining from a remote location, and it is kind of exciting.
What?
I'm not necessarily convinced that this will be a successful offering, but there's a lot that's really right about the world right now. So I'm going to regale you with personal stories as to how we ended up here and also something that's going on. Also, we have a great lineup of people stopping through the show today. So I'm going to tell you that Anthony Davis, the Miedas Touch success story, he comes here, and this is the immigrant story. He comes here as a Britisher, taking those jobs that Americans don't want to do, like being a YouTube host and exposing all of the corrupt aspects of our political system. He comes here, he does it, and he will join us and share a little bit of his magic. And he's my flavor of the month boyfriend. So if you have not met Anthony Davis, I think you'll fall in love with him also. Also, Florida today, Friday Fabulous Florida, and Michael Shore on politics. The week has been eventful. I've got a Stephen A. Smith and Sean Hannity story, and Kim is here, which is in itself,
Kim, how are you?
An impressive feat. Sometimes we don't know.
Modern,
will she make it? Won't she make it?
Modern
She
miracle.
has a lot of stuff going on. She has a family. She has 2 children. She has a husband in a beautiful community just north of San Francisco called Petaluma.
That's right.
And Albert is here.
Albert,
He's in
thank you.
a beautiful community to the east of San Francisco called Union City. How did they come up with the name Union City, Albert? Have you ever looked into that?
No, I think I did. It's a Union City because there's 3 counties out here, and they all combine the 3 counties to make Union City. Yeah.
Wow, very
that's
impressive,
cool.
Albert. Good knowledge. I would have bet against you on that.
I would have guessed it had something to do with the railroad, but that's cool.
I would have guessed it would have had something to do with the oil company, maybe, but
Yeah.
We had a
really,
sugar cane out here in Union City. That was a big industry before. But
Albert surprises by actually knowing the accurate derivation of the Union City title. Very impressive.
I
Really
think
impressed.
Derivation would be dingable.
All right, maybe. The news that I'm supposed to share with you, and I'm excited to share, I don't say I'm supposed to share with you. I've just finished something exciting.
Oh.
You know, I've done a number of high-profile voiceover things, jobs, you know. It's something I really wanted to do. I've been doing it for a long time. I like it because there's performance in it. You change the various reads, etc. And I'm going to get to all the politics and everything. And this is sort of for me, I always say when people say, do you want to, just work as a voiceover artist, the answer is if I had to work as a voiceover artist, I'd be living in my car, okay? Because you cannot really make a consistent living at it. You know, things will be really great. I was really hot like 20 years ago, and then I got, lukewarm for a long time. And then something big comes through. Anyway, I've done...
They're giving all the jobs to Anthony Davis, that's why.
Anthony Davis, I could listen to him.
I know.
You'll hear him in just a minute. I could listen to Anthony Davis say anything. Everything out of his mouth sounds amazing. You just want to go, please just keep talking, right? Mm-hmm. So he's what is that, Albert, the sine qua non, that the very apex of sound, I think, is Anthony Davis. But anyway, so I have my voice, because it's not British. I can audition for things that Anthony Davis cannot. And now let me just cut to the news. So I've done a lot of high-profile voiceovers. I've been on Super Bowl commercials. I've done commercials that have run on very high-profile things. A lot of narration, etc. I've never been on the World Series. I've never been, the announcer for the World Series. The big announcer. Like I've done a lot of award shows. I've done the American Music Awards, and everything with like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome director Steven Soderbergh. I've done all that, but today, and for the rest of the World Series, I'll be doing the World Series super teases that exist in the pregame show. So there's no announcer for the actual World Series. It's Kevin Burkhardt, I think, but is the play-by-play guy. But for the super tease that will, what's coming up, the World Series tonight, and it's huge. It's the Dodgers and the Yankees. So I'm really excited to be on this. And I auditioned for it. You read it. And Anthony Davis knows a little something about this, too. He's my brother when it comes to so many things. He's so helpful. And the one thing we share is having to audition for these various things, most of which you don't get. And so when they called me, and they called me late last night, like what time they called? Midnight?
Yeah, midnight.
Yeah, midnight. And they said, hey, we want you for the Super Tease for the World Series. It's like, wow, this is really cool. So I'm really excited, and I'm a little nervous. Like, I hope it all worked out, So the only other thing, and this is the context of the news as it relates to the show, I may have to leave to do what's called a pickup, where you have to pick up a line or two to, because for any number of reasons. They want a different read, something technical, whatever. So if that happens, I will literally have to leave right away, and I'll turn the show over to Kim.
Well, aren't you big and fancy? Look at you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very...
Do you know who I am?
Well, it's
kind of a big deal.
Wow.
I'm very excited, and what can I say? It's, I did American Idol for, 15, 16 seasons. I was the voice of American Idol, And so, but that's a really high-profile show. But the World Series to me is like, it's Americana. It's really exciting. So that's, it'll be on a little after 4 o'clock Pacific time, a little after 7 o'clock if you're watching in the East. And the game, I think, starts at 8 o'clock in the East, 5 o'clock in the West. So
and you can do it from Las Vegas?
Yeah, we recorded it from Las Vegas. That's right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, pretty wild. So
congratulations. This is really cool.
Yeah, I think it is cool. I'm really excited about it.
Really
you can understand why I'd be. Yeah,
this
so thank you. I mean, again, I've done a lot of high-profile stuff, but for me, the World Series is another level of cool. So I'm looking forward to it. As a Giants fan, Harry says, I now have a reason to listen to the World Series. Thank you. At least the pregame show. Anyway, very, very cool. Look, there's a lot going on. There's a remarkable fact, which is that Kamala Harris is held to such a different standard than is Donald Trump. It's a remarkable, stark reality in this election, and yet it is an election that somehow pits these two people who are on completely different levels, in my judgment, against each other. So we'll get into that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What is that, Kim?
Do you think that if Kamala Harris called America a giant garbage can, that she would even be a real candidate in this election?
Well, I know that was his most recent thing, but I would say that even more stark is the notion that you would call elected officials enemies of the people. You would, call the press an enemy of the people. You'd call the press out and your political opponents as people that you're going to actually go after. You'd advertise sort of recriminatory instincts. This is unbelievable. It's completely un-American. I mean, the latest news, and of course the news about Kelly and Milley and all of these who say Donald Trump actually really wanted to bring American troops to the streets of Washington, D.C. and to other streets of cities and municipalities around the country. He did use the American military, as you know, to go to the southern border. That was to somehow, it was really performative, I thought. Remember the immigrants who were coming at Christmas time to, the invasion, in effect. We'll talk about this with Anthony Davis, but all I'm trying to say is there is a completely disproportionate reality when it comes to evaluating these two candidates. Audrey says, congratulations, Mark. Your voices are all magnificent. Thank you, Audrey, for $49.99, a $50 super chat. That is so cool. And I'm looking for my big shout out. Do I have I have a thank you. Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much. And Audrey.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. It's a Fiverr Friday. Sure can't wait, he says. Michael Shore is next hour. Thank you, Harry. Love you, Harry Magnan. Been here since the beginning. And Candace, thank you for the super sticker for $9.99, a $10 super sticker. I love it, and I wish I could find my big shout out. I can't seem to find it. I
blame you.
There it
big
is. Thank
shout
you,
out.
Albert. Yeah. And Lori, finally, and then I will get to my boyfriend, Anthony Davis. Lori Fuchsia, a $30 donation from Daniel D. for Kim's daughter's GoFundMe. Julia's GoFundMe for her Santa Rosa Youth Symphony trip to the Netherlands and Germany to play the bassoon.
Really nice.
Wow.
We don't technically have a GoFundMe, but she is fundraising, so I'll throw it in the pot. That's really, really kind. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Lori above the bar.
That is really, really cool. And I love it.
If you're in San Francisco, it's all about the Red Jack.
Red Jack is where Lori lives. Literally. She lives above the Red Jack. And it's a terrific story. They've been supporters since we were on KGO. There they are. The Red Jacks. Go in there and watch the World Series. You know. Albert's not as excited about the World Series because it's got, what, Albert? There's one element that you really can't stomach. Isn't that right?
It's like 1.5. It's the Yankees, and it's also the big blue team, the Dodgers.
Yeah, he's not he's a Giants fan, so he doesn't go for the
Albert, thank you.
anyway. So,
He's not impressed by your being the voice of the World Series.
Yeah, you're not impressed with the fact that I'm the voice of the World Series, Albert? You're not that doesn't
I've heard your voice in some pretty cool places.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Very cool, but
Thank you, Albert. All right. Let's do it. Smash it like a boss.
rod.
Please welcome from the Miedas Touch Network. He's remarkable. I love his stuff, and he's blown up. I mean, I've watched this guy go from moderately popular to insanely popular. I'm still glad that he makes time for us as he has grown in epic ways. How about it for the great Anthony Davis, who is the 5-minute news producer and host. Anthony Davis, I've grown drunk on our relationship. I'm very, very happy that you would spend time with us.
I'm very grateful too. It's our friendship has definitely blossomed to the point that we are. I'd say we're joined at the hip now. I don't think if a day goes by when we're not texting, I feel a little lost. I'll be honest.
I also am bound by honesty to say that I feel when you talk about politics or takes on various things, I feel like I can hold my own. But when it comes to competence in all other areas, I feel that Anthony Davis is the guy. Like if you have technical stuff, if you're planning a trip, if there's any number of things, even if you're getting tickets to a concert, Anthony Davis is your guy. I am not. So I lean on him. It is a bromance. Julia has it exactly right. It's Julie has it as a bromance, and it is. All right. I could while away the hours speaking to you this way, but I want to.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Anthony Davis, it amazes me that there is this disproportionality in the evaluation of these two presidential candidates. It's a remarkable thing, and I'm wondering, I think you bring some unique perspectives because you do come from Europe, and you've been here a while, but I still think that you kind of have a fresh perspective. Would this ever exist in, let's say, a European election, a British election, et cetera, this kind of total disregard almost for the fascistic tendencies of one of the candidates to the point that we're now just focusing on how many interviews Kamala Harris has done?
Well, I don't think it would ever have got this far. Certainly in the UK, definitely in countries like Germany or Sweden, the functioning democracies of this world. And the reason I say that is because Trump should probably not have got the nomination in 2016 because he was a joke character. And whilst there are obviously a lot of people voted for him, they were voting for the guy off The Apprentice. Well, the marketing manager from The Apprentice has now come forward and apologized for creating this fake character of a rich billionaire with all the helicopter and the boardroom. I mean, apparently Donald Trump's boardroom was so shabby that they had to build a boardroom in a studio because his kind of day-to-day business life was not up to it. So they invented a character that people voted for. And I can totally see that. You know, America does celebrate its entertainers. In England, we have kings and queens going back thousands of years. Here, you have Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. And so I get that, and I love that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to move here, you know. But the problem is that when you get that crossover, you know, it's almost like if Frank Sinatra showed up and he couldn't sing. This is the issue, right? That Donald Trump was never the real deal. He was an actor. He played the role of a president or a presidential type businessman, president of the Trump organization, but he never ran it like that. You know, it was a family business, like a mafia business, where he was the Don, literally. And nobody liked working for him. And so what the network had to do was create an image of somebody where this TV show would sell. And of course, the TV show is one of the great TV success stories. However, it doesn't work in real life. And I think in the UK, and just to your question, and in Europe, people would have seen through the character played on TV much earlier. And therefore, that whole golden escalator thing, which, you know, he keeps focusing on, it's like for him that was it was like a coming of age coming down his golden escalator, where for the first time in his life he actually was having to do something for somebody else and to be held accountable and to work within rules and protocols. He'd never done that before in the Trump organization. So this is really where we're at now, with the media realizing they could get rich off of him because he's a freak show. And with everybody kind of thinking, well, regular politicians haven't managed to do any good for us, so let's try the guy off The Apprentice. This is the saddest part of the story, right? Because he played that role, didn't he? He was like, I'm not a politician. But what we should have said is, no, you're not a politician, so clear off.
Well, I mean, he's not a he didn't know how to govern.
Servant.
I mean, he didn't know how to govern as a public servant. Exactly. I'm so glad you mentioned it that way because, you know, even this is coming across, I'm seeing not woke, who kind of likes to stir the pot. But hey, is Kamala more qualified? Every flavor of yes. She
has experience in all three branches of government. And let's not forget that. He had no experience in Washington. He claimed he'd only ever been there 17 times and never stayed over. And
that was a kind of seductive pitch for those who are frustrated with Washington, that here's this outsider who's going to come shake it up. And this is the other thing. He has been a president now, says Not Woke. Yeah, he was a president who was feckless, incompetent, fired everyone, denied the existence of COVID. I mean, I say fired everyone because he was firing everyone who was pushing back on him in any kind of responsible way. He denied the existence of COVID, and it costs hundreds of thousands of lives at minimum. And Anthony Davis, you detail this so beautifully. I mean, you go down like the laundry list of things. But here's a guy who engineered a coup on the United States of America. He tried to overturn the election, and you still want to tell me that he has been president now? So he has been president. He's been a guy who sat in the executive office and tried to overthrow the government of the United States. I cannot even conceive that this guy is literally in a dead heat with anybody else in America. But
it's not. We shouldn't even have to consider him as a candidate. It should be an automatic disqualification. If you try and overthrow the government and overturn a legitimate election and steal classified documents and pretend that you've given them back when you haven't, and then share them with an Australian billionaire, not to mention anybody else, it should be automatic disqualification. And this is the problem with the United States, is that the guardrails, clearly the founders had a system that worked in the early 1900s, but it didn't necessarily work, or doesn't necessarily work today. They weren't expecting somebody like Donald Trump to kind of take advantage of this. So clearly, we are in a situation now, I would actually call it a constitutional crisis, where you have an insurrectionist running for president, and according to the polling, he's neck and neck. I mean, I've been checking the poll of polls every day, and it's getting closer and closer and closer. She's like 1.5 points ahead now. This is margin of error stuff.
Absolutely right. And there's this. This is interesting. And then I'll get into the disproportionality a little bit more. And I also want to show you this Stephen A. clip. Trump is a Russian asset, says Renee. When are people going to realize that? I truly believe he has a plan to top off this government and make it an autocracy. And all the autocrats of the world are in on it. I mean, I don't know if all the autocrats are. I mean, I think the autocrats of the world are rooting for him. There really might be a connection between Trump and Russia. He's been almost remarkably and eerily scared, or I don't know what you would call it, disdainful of any notion that Putin be criticized in any way, from Ukraine to meddling in the election to, I mean, it's as though, I mean, I get why he wouldn't want to say he meddled in the election in 2016, because that would suggest it undermines the legitimacy of his victory. But he is so completely, as I say, almost frightened of criticizing Vladimir Putin, that it does make me wonder if there isn't some connection between Russia or compromat when it comes to
the Mueller report
Putin
said there probably
Trump.
was compromat, and that really is the thing. It could have been the PP tape, which we know about, but I doubt it was, because Trump is a germaphobe and there's a whole other story there. But there is a lot of evidence to suggest that Putin does have a hold over him. I mean, I personally put it down to the fact that he puts Putin on a pedestal in the same way that he puts Kim Jong on a pedestal, and Xi Jinping on a pedestal, and Viktor Orban on a pedestal, and Erdogan on a pedestal. He thinks that these people are the coolest. But you know, Mark, I think what we should talk about, because I'm looking at some of the messages that are coming up, you know, on your live chat. My position on this and your position on this is not partisan. It is patriotic. And I think that is the difference to make. We're not saying this because we're snowflake lefty liberals and we don't want the Republicans to win. I want the Republican Party to have fair representation. I want Republican voters to have fair representation that are conservative and that stick to those values. Trump isn't that. Right? He is not that. He is not a Republican. He's anti-conservative. He's anti-constitution. He's anti-institutions. He is not what the Republican or the grand old party, whatever you choose to call it, he is not that. And so what I'm advocating for is a healthy opposition to Kamala Harris, because I believe in opposition, because I think that that forms a functioning democracy, where you argue with each other and you find common ground, because that is true representation. But Trump is not that. He listens to nobody. He's out on his own. He calls the shots. He clearly is compromised by these dictatorships around the world, and that's what he has planned for the US. He does not care for his voters. He does not want to cut your taxes. He wants to cut corporation taxes. He doesn't believe in climate change. He didn't care for the pandemic because it happened the same year as the election and he wanted to win. So, you know, all of that stuff is the reason why Donald Trump needs to be gone. But replace him with somebody who is a quality conservative candidate. I'm not saying that this should be, you know, this is not a partisan position. This is a patriot position, because we love America and we care for what it stands for. He is none of those things.
It's interesting, and I see this in the chat as well, the flag of pacifism is sort of flown around Trump because he's against the conflict in Ukraine, and as a result, somehow he's been able to suggest, and there were no wars, is what he says, under my presidency. And of course, that's total BS. I mean, you had war in Yemen, you had war in Syria. These are wars that the United States is participating in. Okay, I'm not just saying that these are wars that exist out there somewhere.
Well, he killed Soleimani, so that was on his watch as well. And off the back of that, an airliner got shot down full of 200 Ukrainians. So, I mean, if that's not a war, I don't know what is.
The Soleimani thing came out of nowhere. I mean, in other words, it was unprovoked. And so he's lucky that didn't turn into some widespread conflict in the Middle East, that Iran didn't strike back. It was really on Iran's desire to avoid some sort of military conflict that Trump skated without there being any kind of reprisal.
Mm-hmm. And this is the problem that we have, is that he will lie through his veneers in order to convince people that he is good for America. But he just isn't. He's not a patriotic American. He's never cared for America. And you can go right back to 9/11, when his response was, well, now I've got the tallest building in town. And that is who Donald Trump is. Not even thinking for the effects of 9/11 on America, on New Yorkers, and on the victims and their families. All about him. And if you haven't learnt that, 9/11 was over 20 years ago, right? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like we have had this data on who this guy is. He hasn't changed. Yes, he's become older and his dementia's obviously kicking in, but I don't even care for the dementia. That, to me, is not the bad part of Donald Trump. The bad part of Donald Trump is the fascism, as Kamala Harris rightly came out yesterday and said with clarity, confirming that Mark Milley said he was a fascist, and John Kelly said he was a fascist, and James Mattis said he was a fascist. These are lifelong military generals, 4-star generals, Marine generals. It's like, don't take Kamala's word for it, take their word for it, because they've been keeping us safe for decades. So, I mean, to me, it's an open and shut case. But as you know, I have an opinion on the polling. I don't actually believe Donald Trump is going to win this election. I don't believe the separation is 1.5 or 6 points. I actually think that he's going to lose in a landslide. And I think that the fake polling suggests that it's close so that he can claim that it was rigged when he loses. And that's what we have to be prepared for.
This is a terrific point that Anthony Davis is making, and I just want to focus on it for a moment. There is a flood of GOP polling right now that suggests that Trump is ahead in all the swing states and is trending up in this very distinct, remarkable way. And Anthony Davis's narrative makes a lot of sense, which is, of course, the GOP is flooding the zone, as is now said over and over, with all of these polls that they're not independent polls, they're GOP polls. So, you kind of reverse engineer what you want, right? I want this poll to show that Trump is way ahead so that after the election, when he does lose, perhaps in a landslide, as Anthony Davis is suggesting, that there is this remarkable, well, wait a minute, this can't be legitimate because all of the polling showed, at worst it's close, and we were actually way, way ahead as GOP. So they really have set up, and they're really playing for Act Two, aren't they, Anthony Davis?
It's not just Act Two. This is a continuation, in my opinion, of the insurrection. The insurrection never stopped, right? So January 6th, yes, you're right, it was the rehearsal. They can see what they could get away with, what they couldn't get away with, who they could trust, who they couldn't trust. Mike Pence is out of the equation yet. The difference is Trump is not the incumbent, so that's going to change things, so they had to adjust their plan.
That's a huge difference, though, isn't it?
Huge difference. But it's not going to stop because a couple of things are at play. You've got people who are Trump loyalists, who are working in these legislatures, they're not quite fake electors, but it's their job to certify the election. There's a good chance that won't be happening. I know that Georgia's actually clamped down on that recently, and it's been doing a lot of work because they know, and Brad Raffensperger knows, and Gabe knows, all these people there that have had to deal with what went on last time. They've tried to kind of belt and braces the operation. But, there's a lot of districts, there's a lot of swing states, and there's also a lot of Trump loyalists who think they can get away with it. I mean, look at the way those fake electors knocked on the door and said, we've got the new electing certificates and we'd like to swap them out. I mean, they actually did that, and there was like a policeman on the door and he's like, you ain't coming in. I mean, that is how blatant their activities will be, their illegal activities. That's how obvious the corruption is. I don't think they're particularly smart, these people. But, this time around, look, let me just say this. The American economy is doing great, right? It's really, considering we're off the back of a pandemic, when all other countries are still struggling to grow, America is doing really, really well. And that is a very important thing going into an election. People really do vote based on how the economy is doing. We're not in a recession. We never fell into recession. GDP is up, growth is up, unemployment is down, inflation is coming down. So, we're in a really good place. That on its own could win the Democrats the election. Just that on its own. Now add into the equation that the opposition, her opponent, is a convicted felon, 34 felony counts. He's twice impeached. He paid off a porn star. He stole classified documents, and he still claims that the election was stolen. Add all that stuff in, there is no way Trump's winning this election. He just isn't. But the reason that we feel like he might is because he tells us how popular he is. Mark, he's so unpopular, 2 people tried to shoot him from his own team, right? That is how unpopular this guy is. And so we have to accept that so much of this is our own insecurity, it's our own anxiety, and it's built up over, he's been around for 10 years now, almost a decade of Trump talking crap on America for 10 years. So it feels like he is more popular and that there is more energy for him than there is. But it's actually the fact that with a red hat you can see people, right? Look at the merchandise is that color on purpose because it looks like there's more of them, right?
Let me worry out loud for a lot of people who may not buy into that. I sure love that narrative and really hope it's true that somehow, when you stack up all of those things, that his support has eroded and people find him, at least in sufficient numbers, loathsome and would never vote for him. But let me just give you the other side, which is he is Teflon. These are insanely damaging things to which you referred. I mean, he's adjudicated rapist. He jacked thousands of documents from the White House. He was waving them around. I mean, these are classified military secrets. It's likely that they were shared with foreign powers. We know that because of any number of and any amount of reporting that's come out of Mar-a-Lago. Any number of reports is what I was going to say. That's without purpose. Like, to what purpose would you jack these military documents and secrets, store them in bathrooms, ballrooms, and bedrooms at Mar-a-Lago? So, and he engineered a coup, as you say. You stack all of these things up. However, none of these things seem to stick to him, Anthony Davis. I mean, objective polling, does have him in a dead heat. It's not unreasonable to think that there is a possibility that this guy might actually win. Now, when you add to that this that you've referred to, which is that people who are counting the votes and certifying the votes may be, quote, in on it, if you will, I think there's a scary, real possibility that his core of support, let's say it's 35%, maybe it's 40% of Americans who are motivated by feeling as though they're losing their country. It's not a white enough country. It's not a religious enough country. There's a big Christian theocracy that is desired by a lot of people. Let's get this country back to Jesus. That supports him. These things can drag him across the finish line.
It's not 40%. So let's just look at the numbers for a second, because this is really important. It feels like it's 40% because when we look at the vote last time, he got 70 million votes, right? Or 74 million votes. And what did Biden get? Like 86 million votes. Well, there was 7,000 votes in it, I think. So it feels like it's half and half. But let's just look at some of the numbers. Only 63% of the electorate voted last time. So the turnout is abysmal, considering that democracy is hanging by a thread. So now you're not talking about 330 million people. You're actually talking about much smaller numbers. So, and the other thing is that Donald Trump hasn't won anything since 2016. He is a serial loser. He won in 2016 because people gave him the benefit of the doubt. They knew him from The Apprentice. He hadn't done January 6 yet. He hadn't done the coup. He hadn't stolen the documents yet. He hadn't paid off Stormy Daniels, or we certainly didn't know about it then. He hadn't have tried to overturn the election. He hadn't have called, he hadn't done Pocahontas. He hadn't done Horseface. All of this stuff, right? All this crap that we've been dealing with. None of that had happened in 2016. So people were looking at Trump through rose-tinted spectacles. But since those things started to happen, since his failure to control COVID, I mean, the scientists reckon that 600,000 people died unnecessarily in COVID because of Donald Trump. And 1.2 million people died in total in the US. Donald Trump is a pox on American society. He hasn't won anything since that became clear. So, I see where you're coming from, but statistically, the numbers do not suggest that he wins. There are simply not enough people who are dumb enough to vote for Donald Trump. And the line I'm peddling now is that, nobody in their right mind will vote for Donald Trump. Now, that is a loaded sentence on purpose, exactly. Right? It is a purposely loaded sentence. Nobody in their right mind is going to vote for Donald Trump.
There are interests and single-issue voters. There are anti-abortion voters. But there are also, women, I think, who are going to show up in large numbers who have seen their reproductive rights stripped away. I mean, it's crazy, the jihad that's gone on against women, and it will continue, and they will double down on it. So I get this on both sides, but what I'm seeing in the chat, and I think it's a reasonable thing to ask is, so wait a minute, let me understand this. Why then is the polling, objective polling? I mean, if you look at the Real Clear Politics aggregator polls, there is a dead heat. It's within the margin of error. Are those polls just out to lunch, or is this an unpolled group of people who will be voting for Kamala Harris over Trump?
Well, firstly, give me an example of when polls have ever been correct, right? They've never been correct. They're famously incorrect. They just give the rolling news network something to talk about. But there is very little accuracy in polling, traditionally. It worked better decades ago when everybody had a landline and people actually answered it and they didn't have caller ID and they didn't have 6 jobs, so they actually had time on their hands. It was different when that kind of polling was invented. These days, the pollsters have to be a little bit more strategic. They have to come up with new methodologies. I personally don't believe that the types of people that will be voting for Kamala Harris and the Democrats are the ones that show up in polling. They just don't. There's also a whole lot of Republicans who are going to say that they're Republicans when the pollster rings the bell, but they're actually going to vote for the Democrat this time around because they care more about this country than they do about one burnt orange disaster.
We talked about this yesterday. Kim and I were talking about the fact that I think women in a lot of these MAGA households or MAGA-adjacent households will show up at the polls and pull the lever or punch the card for Kamala Harris because they resent the fact that Trump and his minions of older white men are jumping on them and taking away their reproductive freedoms. But Kim mentioned that in many a MAGA household, they fill out the ballot together, with the sort of supervision, the proctoring of the election ballot by the guy, the family member who is into Trump's perceived machismo, etc. Yeah. Go ahead, what?
Well, because this unfortunately is baked into the Christian nationalism, which is that the men are dominant, the female is designed to rear children and clean the house and cook, and tragically, in a lot of these families, people are defaulting to those roles. And, it's just a very antiquated way of living. And I recognize that we live in a society, it's not like the Amish community where they don't go on the internet, so they don't know how other people live. I do believe that there is pushback because we recognize what a truly modern, progressive, equal society can look like. Look, we've got a female person of color running for president who is going to win. So, we really have already broken the glass ceiling. But what goes with that is you having access to more rights, not fewer rights. And by rights, I even include the Environmental Protection Agency, the right to breathe clean air and drink clean water. These are human rights, basic human rights. Abortion should be a given as a human right. It shouldn't even be up for discussion.
Control your own body absolutely should be a human right. I have many friends, Cabo Jeff says, that are good people who really think Trump was sent to us to save the country. Cabo Jeff, you need to make new friends, I would say, first of all.
But that is a very popular opinion amongst people who are radicalized by Trumpism. And Dr. Bandy Lee says that Trumpism is a contagion. It is a collective mental health crisis that a lot of people are suffering from because he is the antithesis of everything that you think. And he's never told a true word in his life. He is the most ungodly person. And so to convert with your mind somebody as terrible as that with the Access Hollywood stuff and all that, And to think that he is a gift from God who has been sent here as a kind of rising Messiah, that is quite a stretch. It can only be a mental health problem.
It's a pitch, though. It's a pitch that I think, again, rising theocrats and those who want a theocracy, it's a pitch to their minions, to their congregations, that this is the guy, the imperfect vessel that God has chosen for his perfect work. You know how you can work the Bible, and you can make anything. You can absolutely make any sale you want in any pitch using the Bible or whatever kind of twisted logic. JH says, I'm a centrist and going to vote for Trump because Trump will stop anti-Semitism on college campuses. Let me first say this. Trump can't stop anti-Semitism on college campuses. I mean, who do you think he is? I mean,
he's anti-Semitic for a start. He is. Trump is the most anti-Semitic person who's ever been in leadership next to Enoch Powell. And like, if you can't see that, if you don't know that, then you really need to check yourself and do some research. And, it's very interesting because I was watching, I don't know if you've seen, but David Pakman, who's one of our kind of colleagues in this independent news space, who's brilliant. He's been debating a lot of Republicans recently. And it's clear to me, and a lot of these Republicans have their own podcasts because, people give themselves a podcast. And the lack of knowledge that these people seem to have, he's been very respectful and he schools people. And a lot of them are like, really? I didn't know that. And this is what we need to do, is we need to correct people where if you think that Donald Trump is on the side or is not an anti-Semite, why? Because he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem? I mean, is that it? Because that caused a whole lot of problems and destabilized much of Israel because of that move. Not everybody was down for that. He lied about bringing peace to the Middle East. He did the Abraham Accords, which are a bunch of fake...
it was a real estate deal, really.
It was a real estate deal, but it didn't include the Palestinians.
Exactly.
Right? All the negotiations involved countries, Jordan, places that weren't even in conflict. It was a photo op. That's all it was. In the same way that him going to McDonald's and serving food through the window, the second window, I might add, they didn't put him on the first window because they didn't trust him to handle the cash. But it was a photo op. The place was closed. All the people on the drive-thru were Republicans that had been hand-selected. Nothing that you see with Donald Trump is real. It is fake. And maybe we could just flip this very quickly. It's important to say, and I made this point in a couple of videos recently, that the difference between Trump and Kamala Harris is authenticity. America is already great. Kamala Harris has been able to bring people from all sides of the aisle and from all over the country and make them feel a sense of hope and joy for a change and a new direction for a positive America where we are not at each other's throats. That is the greatness that America has. That is, in my opinion, what is going to win this election. She says we're not going back. She makes a very good point. Nobody wants to go back to that. My memory of Trump's presidency was the National Guard on the street, shops boarded up, women's marches, BLM protests. That was my memory of the Trump administration. And I'm not going back. And I don't even get to vote.
It is, that's wild, too, that you don't get to vote. Well, you'll get your citizenship soon, though, I think, won't you?
Yeah, in like 20 months.
Not soon enough.
Something. 20 months.
Yeah, right now. Well, if you live in California, it won't matter on the presidential side, but it might on other House races, et cetera. I also just think that there's this, as I was saying it as we started this conversation, the media does dictate the narrative. The media does establish the things that are important. Now, obviously, when it comes to women's reproductive freedoms or the economy or whatever, these things people feel may exceed anything that they see on media as the things that they should feel are important. But there is this stark disproportionality between the way they treat Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And, you've got a guy who, and there's a good piece from Eugene Robinson in the Washington Post today. So, he says on one side, former President Donald Trump rants about mass deportations, claims to have stopped wars with France after being described by his longest-serving White House chief of staff as a literal fascist. On the other side, Commentators debate whether Vice President Kamala Harris performed well enough at a CNN town hall to, quote, close the deal. I mean, there is a huge double standard. And baked into this campaign is the fact that Trump is allowed to talk and act like a complete lunatic, while Harris has to be perfect in every way. It is utterly insane.
But that's America, isn't it? I mean, it's that really is part of the problem, because so much here is performative. And because he is a freak show, he therefore is interesting to the media. Because she is the real deal and authentic, she is less tacky for the media, right? So that there's less to cover with her. It's just business as usual. Doing the right thing, saying the right things, not screwing up, not being sensationalist. He is a sensational character. It's like, this is the reason why people watch shows on TV that make them feel a bit, like that is what you get from Trump. It gives you a visceral reaction, and a lot of people are very addicted to that. It's like, I don't understand why people love horror movies or roller coasters, but some people need the adrenaline rush. They're probably the people voting for Donald Trump. I would prefer politics to remain boring and administrative and just, supporting the most important parts of society, which is trying to create a level of equality so that people do not need to sleep on the streets and that people can afford food from the grocery store. Simple things. Trump would never talk about that stuff. He's never wanted for anything. He was born with a gold toilet in his mouth. So, he is the wrong person to represent the average American, because he is anything but.
He is, I think you aptly described it in that way. He is the sort of the shiny object for the media, and that's why he's covered the way he is. But boy, that gives him a huge pass, and it may be such a huge pass that people blow past the warnings from Milley, from Kelly. I mean, these are these are Marine Corps guys, Jim Mattis, Mark Esper. These are people who have warned about his performance in office. Okay, they're talking about when he was president. He was erratic and a threat to the republic. They speak of this in stark terms. These are people who are loath to come out and take a political position. The generals, military, most particularly. But there are a bunch of civilians that are alongside of them who worked in the Trump administration and who share those warnings and fears. And yet, as you suggest, again, the shiny object is Trump. He's like a show, and people even show up to his rallies because they want the show. They're not interested in policy. He's not queried on policy by media the way Kamala Harris is. He's not even examined on policy the way Kamala Harris is.
The fact that he can lie and claim that she never worked in McDonald's, and despite the fact that he was in there for 15 minutes, and people believe that she didn't work in McDonald's because he said she didn't, with no evidence, Kamala Harris needs to have the cleanest record in order to do the jobs that she's done, to be a district attorney, to be a senator, to be a presidential candidate, and certainly a vice president. You can't lie about working in McDonald's. Now, the fact that Trump says that she lied because he can't find anyone that can corroborate it. She worked there as a summer job when she was a kid, right? She has been very clear about this. She didn't own a franchise, for goodness sake. So he needs to lie about that and knows that there'll be no pushback on his lies. And this is what's so frustrating to me, is that suddenly this presidential race has become whether or not she worked in McDonald's. She can't lie. She is not able to lie. It doesn't fit with her role as a public servant. And why would she need to lie? Why would anybody lie about working in McDonald's? The fact that he says she's lying is him projecting, because he spent a lifetime lying about the size of his buildings, lying about his great wealth, lying about valuations, lying about how tall he is or how slim he is. He is a compulsive liar. So by projecting to say that she is lying about something as trivial as McDonald's just shows where his level is. And he will get away with it because nobody will push back. And
speaking of pushback, there was a rare moment on right-wing media, which is the strongest instrument, I'd suggest, of propaganda is the Fox News channel. I mean, they're the number one watched news channel.
Yeah.
And they do hit part of the electorate that does vote. So I think it's a mistake to dismiss them in any way. And so there was a moment on the Hannity show, and we've got the clip, during which Hannity is kind of doing his number where he builds up Trump. And Hannity, I'll remind everybody, was effectively a White House employee. I mean, he was maybe the closest advisor to Trump. They spoke daily, and Hannity advised Trump on policy and then went on Fox News Channel during the Trump presidency and made all of these sweeping statements about how various Trump policies were great successes. This is Hannity with Stephen A. Smith last night. Take a look.
But here's my question for you. You did call her out early, and you said she's making a mistake not doing interviews. Now, she does these interviews, and I argue to you that the reason she's struggling and she's like tied up in a pretzel, because she can't express what she has stated publicly, that she wants the Green New Deal, the elimination of the filibuster. She can't say she wants to eliminate private health insurance, as she has said in the past. She's not going to run on what she has stated in the past to decriminalize illegal immigration, free food, housing, healthcare, education, sex change operations, and a path to citizenship, or banning fracking, banning offshore drilling. So she has to give us word salads, because she won't tell us how she really feels. She's hiding her true beliefs.
Well,
Donald Trump doesn't do that.
Well, first of all, that's a very long question. Let's get to it. Number one, you talk about what she's doing. Bottom line is this: as Vice President of the United States, it wasn't her job to lead. She has to go along with the program. You are a support base. You support the person that is in charge, who happened to be Joe Biden. That's number one. Number two, I know you're not talking about somebody being lucid and cogent and enunciating their thoughts with clarity, and you're bragging about Donald Trump. We can't be watching the same stuff if that's what you're doing. You ain't going to do that today.
You know
now,
what?
Lindsey Graham, hold it. Now, Senator Lindsey Graham is about to come on this show.
Let me tell you
now,
something.
that man can articulate himself very well. Not Donald Trump now.
I have sat with him for hour after hour after hour, topic after topic after topic, and he is so dialed in. Look, it's funny. People try. This is like the latest argument. Meanwhile, your friends in the Democratic Party, they ignored the obvious, significant, deep cognitive decline of the president for over 4 years. I said it before the 2020 election. Kamala to this day say, Joe was really cognitively alert. You know that's a crock. I know that's a crock.
What is she supposed to say, Sean?
Knows it's a crock. Not Donald Trump.
Sean, what is it? Hold on. What is she supposed to say? She's supposed to sit up there and say, you know what, my president, my boss.
Truth.
I mean, there was cognitive decline there. No, you're not. No, you don't do that.
Show?
You don't dime out your boss. You don't. I do tell the truth on my show, but guess what? So I said I do. What I said, however, is that I'm not going to dime out my boss if that's my boss. Go ahead.
Whoa, hang on a second. You know what? I have never watched you hold back. You say what you mean. You mean what you say. That's my point. She is. But she knew he was a cognitive mess, and now she's lying. Oh no, I never noticed it. It's a
Sean,
it's a lie.
Because Sean, what
Just
you're trying to
admit it's a lie.
Listen, I personally, a year earlier, I was saying there's slippage, there's something that ain't there. He ain't going to make it to the election. Y'all better get with the program, do something about it. I was on the record about Joe Biden, but I'm not a part of the Biden administration. And if I was a part of the Biden administration, I wouldn't have told you that. That's number one. Number two, she's the candidate now. You got to run against her. Are you going to beat her, Sean? Are you going to beat her? Are you going to beat her?
It's straight up. The American people.
Are you as confident as you were months ago?
The biggest choice election in a lifetime.
I see some slippage on his part.
Stephen A., let me tell you something.
Yes.
She lied when she said the inflation's transitory. They lied repeatedly, and she said, "Oh no, the border's secure. The border's secure." Now, all of a sudden,
are you sure you want to make the case about somebody lying in favor of Trump?
She never changed her positions on. She never changed her position on the Green New Deal, on sex change operations, open borders, amnesty, until she became a candidate. You know what that means? She is a typical politician that just will say whatever needs to be said to win an election. You get the last word because I like you so much.
Can I retort? Let me retort. Fair enough. Okay. You didn't even bring up fracking. You didn't even bring up the border. That's absolutely a valid point on your part. What she's doing now is saying, excuse me, I'm open to compromise. I'm willing to work across the aisle. I'm willing to listen and make things happen. Now, you have a lot of people who are going to vote for Trump, and they absolutely positively believe he will change Washington. The question is, will it be for better or will it be for worse? The cesspool that we look at as the nation's capital, if you got him back in office and he's on a revenge tour and he's not focused on doing what it takes to lead the country, where will that lead the country? You're not bringing that part up. So again, we might not like something on the left. We might not like something on the right. These are the two candidates that we've got to work with. And when you bring up issues in terms of character or in terms of being truthful or whatever, let me tell you something right now. Right. You can bring a whole bunch of Republicans and I'll be cool with it. You can't bring up Trump to make a case against somebody else using those arguments. You can't do that.
Look, you know what?
I think he taps out after that. I thought that the notion somehow that you're talking about Kamala Harris lying, or you're looking at Kamala Harris or as having changed her position, or I mean, and you're holding up Trump, who has no virtues in the area of and plays only to the room. He'll tell every room exactly what they want to hear. I mean, there's a cognitive dissonance here that's insanity. You know, Anthony Davis?
I mean, the point I would make is, who is Sean Hannity? Like, why does anybody care about that guy? He's just a professional propagandist. He's not a newscaster. He's not a journalist.
But he's a powerful guy. He has a lot of followers.
Well, I think
he's a leader. He's a media leader. He's a tastemaker, if you want to think of it that way.
I think if you want to think of him as a tastemaker and a media leader, then fine. But we really need to stop putting him on a pedestal. He is the lowest of the low because he's a gaslighter. He's not an intelligent person. He's not an eloquent person. He is a very, he's a really bad person. It's very clear he's a really bad person. And so to give him airtime, it's frustrating because nothing he said there was true. Nothing he said was true. And I like to operate as you do in the reality space. I find that I'm much calmer in the reality space. And, people like Hannity have been trying for years to rile everybody up and make people think that immigrants are coming and bringing drugs and raping you. I mean, I'm an immigrant. I have no drugs and I'm, with respect, you're not my type. But the point that I'm making is that the Fox viewers live in this permanent state of anxiety that the world is about to collapse because Fox make them feel like that. Hannity makes them feel like that. Laura Ingraham makes them feel like that. And Tucker Carlson, when he used to work there, makes them feel like that. That is their business model. It's not real life. America is doing great. People get on really well. People are not at each other's throats in the real world, like that type of argument you just saw between those two guys. That is not how people communicate in the real world. I have plenty of friends who are Republicans, and I'm able to communicate in a very respectful manner. And so to think that that's what America is a bad example. And I don't think any of us should subscribe to that.
I love what you just said. Sadly, I think, and this is one of the reasons I look to Hannity and some of these moments, he leads an older demographic that does show up to vote. And so for that reason, I don't ignore him completely, even as I know everything you've just said about him is completely true,
but there's not enough of them. There's not enough of them. Those people are getting older, and those people are dying, and those people are not voting, and those people eventually, because you've got to remember that younger people coming up now, they all believe in climate change. They all believe in a woman's right to choose, even the ones with conservative parents, because they live in a modern and authentic society. And if
I think in general that's true. The only thing that concerns me is the swing states in this ridiculous electoral college arrangement.
So what bothers you is the electoral college, not the swing states, but the electoral college is what bothers you.
Exactly.
Because that is the system at which we are having to play in order to try and win the election. And every election has been won by a Democrat, apart from George W. Bush one time, right? Every popular vote. And that suggests to me that America is a thoughtful, integrated, diverse, forward-thinking, progressive, need I say, liberal country. Despite the guns and the Second Amendment and all the free speech absolutists and Elon Musk, despite all that noise,
but the Electoral College doesn't reflect that, Anthony Davis.
No, of course.
That's why. It doesn't reflect the America that you just described.
No. And so that is why there needs to be reform. I mean, he was complaining about her wanting to dump the filibuster. That should be the first of the things. Dump the filibuster, pack the court, dump the Electoral College, get some actual reform. We need a real reformer. You
need Congress to do those things, the first few things that you mentioned, although the Electoral College you could do. There's, as you know, there's the Electoral College Compact thing, which is gaining momentum. I think it has 20 states already on board. So it's a process for sure. We're so late. I love that you take time out of your massively successful world to come spend time here. And, you know, we want you anytime. So please check Anthony Davis out on the Miedas Touch Network. He does multiple shows, but the 5-Minute News is a great drop that I check out regularly because anytime I subscribe. So anytime I see an alert, I check it out, and it's just wonderful. And love our friendship, and I love that you spend time with us today. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Anthony Davis, everybody. Right on. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, we're late. I could talk to him all day. Guy's terrific. Great comments. Thank you, everyone. We'll review whatever comments we can. Sorry for this unfriendly environment. We're not in our studio. This is we're on location today, but we'll be here today and tomorrow. Today and Monday, I should say, and then
Can I
back.
just say Anthony Davis is amazing, like so amazing. For someone who can't vote here yet, he seems to have a better understanding of America than almost all Americans. He mentioned David Pakman, and he's so right. I don't know if you saw that Pakman went on to this kids podcast. The guy thinks he's conservative, but it turns out he really doesn't know the facts about anything. And so it ends up like a bit of a civics class with Pakman teaching this kid. He also, Pakman, appeared on Piers Morgan recently and schooled him as well. Guy is amazing.
I saw the Piers Morgan moment. I mean, Piers Morgan is sadly and this is something Anthony Davis knows about because he's a Brit, and Piers Morgan rose to fame as a Brit and in British publishing. But Piers Morgan now is almost a Jerry Springer type figure. He really just lives to tee up a conflict. It's a very easy thing to do. I could easily get a right-winger on this show and start really, throwing fireballs at him, and he'd throw fireballs at me. And at the end of it, you go, wow, that was really fun. But you don't really learn anything or review any material, nor are you bound by fact, because the right particularly just scoops up whatever BS they can and they throw it at you. And that's exactly what Piers Morgan did. He threw BS at Pakman, and Pakman schooled him on what actually happened. It was related to, I believe it was the boxer, the Olympic controversy with the boxer. So
I like that Anthony Davis thinks that America's too smart and that we're going, I forget his exact wording. He said something about we're not going to vote for Trump. Like we know what's going on. I think he gives Americans a little too much credit, and maybe I'll be the one red-faced and that I don't have confidence in the citizens of this country. But I have to say, I agree more with Jim Avila on this one, about how many idiots there are. I don't know. I don't have, because of, and maybe, it's that polling, the question mark on the polling where Anthony Davis says it's not legit, that I just look at the polling every day with a slack-jawed amazement about how many people could possibly fall for this. And he
I share that amazement, and that's why I embrace, with some skepticism or maybe just blind hope, what Davis was saying about the fact that he thinks, when were polls right? When have they been right?
Right.
The ridiculous, I'm just seeing this. Mountain bike fan says, is Mark heartbroken that Anthony said Mark's not his type?
I was a little heartbroken for you. I have to say, I felt,
he really is my
like,
boyfriend.
that's a pierce to the heart right there. Yikes.
Yeah. It's really sad. But so I share that amazement at how close it is. But again, and I think I liked where we finished up, because the flaw and tragic flaw, almost in a, Greek tragedian way, the flaw in America's presidential elections is the Electoral College. It is an absurdist, ridiculous, antiquated, and completely unfair way to elect a president. Moreover, it is slanted toward the GOP. So the Democrats have to overperform in key states in order to win the presidency. Now, they have before, but to be faced with that challenge again and again, and in this case, to be facing that challenge with the real specter of autocracy in the offing. I mean, you have a chaotic, incompetent autocrat waiting to go. It's scary. So I share with you the amazement that this thing is as close as it is. So I have Michael Shure coming up in minutes. We do, typically on Fridays, we do a segment that we brought over from KGO Radio, which this show started as a radio show in San Francisco, and we brought it over to YouTube. And our station in San Francisco went away. The whole station went away. So we brought our people, and that's where Kim comes from and Our comes from. We brought our people here, and we've been doing it on this platform, YouTube, and then we feed this out as an audio presentation across all the podcast networks, major podcast networks, Apple and Spotify and Google Podcasts and iHeartRadio, etc. So I mention that because we've kept certain things from the radio show that were popular, etc. So this is a palate cleanser to politics, and then we'll get back to politics. We always talk about the week in politics with Michael Shure, who's our political analyst, and we'll get to Michael in a moment. And while we wait for Michael, we will give you this palate cleanser. You smash the like button, and I will give you a little taste of Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
Well, it didn't take long for Florida to make its way into the world of Taylor Swift. A Florida man is arrested for posing as a security guard to sneak into Taylor Swift's concert.
What?
Yes. It's the latest instance of the desperate measures that folks will go to attend a Taylor Swift concert. Guy's arrested after police claimed he posed as a security guard to get into the first of her Miami shows.
I can see why. That's a good concert.
I agree. I think it's actually a pretty good plan.
Yeah.
It's a wild idea, but it just might work. I don't know where that is. I don't have it with me.
Ooh, it's a wild idea. But
it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Thank you, Albert.
Albert, thank you.
So, according to the arrest report, the guy was spotted dressed in a suit wearing a badge over his neck near the floor and field area of the venue in Miami.
He looks a little security guardish. Yeah. I can see it.
Spotted by the actual security guard. That's the problem. We do a thing during Friday Fabulous Florida where you look at the booking photo. This is his booking photo. And you tell us on a 10 scale what you think he is. And it looks like he is getting about a 7 in the chat.
7 is appropriate, I think.
He has the look of having not slept that I have, which is one that you don't want. It's not an enviable look. In any case, he was spotted by an actual security guard, and that's what you don't want to have happen. When you're posing as a security guard, you want to make sure that no actual security guard sees you. So it is with the plan having blown up that way that even though he was dressed in a suit and wearing a badge over his neck, that he was spotted by the authorities, and he claimed that he was hired as private security for these women who were attending the concert, etc., but he was arrested and ejected from the venue. A drunk Florida man tosses, what's that, Kim?
I said now he's got the Taylor Swift blues.
Yeah, he's got her on repeat, but only from the joint. A drunk Florida man, again, nothing extraordinary about that, but tosses spaghetti, and is charged with a felony for it. Yeah, he's 40 years old, named Markel Royal, which is a great name, by the way. God, I love that name. I'd like to use that name someday. Markel Royal. Anyway, he got tossed into jail for throwing spaghetti during an argument with his wife.
Oh.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch.
Are you saying
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved?
Are you saying this was more than a general food fight? No?
Yeah, it's not the first. In fact, it's not even the second or third argument we have featured on Friday Fabulous Florida that has involved pasta being thrown. But this is the situation. He threw spaghetti, the marinara pasta. It hit her square in the stomach, and she called the cops. And she was covered in pasta when the cops arrived. And the officers booked him. They don't like the pasta throwing, Kim.
No, apparently not.
Yeah. And on his booking photo, I have to say, he looks like he could be an actor in one of the CSI shows. He looks really good. I almost want to give him a 10. John Watson wants to give him a 4. I don't understand. Look at him.
He looks like he could be famous.
Exactly. He looks great.
Yeah.
7.5 is what Peter gives him. I don't know, guys.
I'm going to go 9. Yeah.
Yeah. Albert, don't you think he's a handsome guy?
Handsome guy. We have another handsome guy waiting.
Michael Shure. Okay, quickly. Finally, a python found eating a deer in Florida stuns scientists. That's right. Biologists in southwest Florida have uncovered a massive snake, the Burmese python, which is, as I recall, an invasive species to Florida, consuming a deer. And the reason they are astounded by this is because of how wide the jaw had to open. 2 inches wider than previously observed to take in this large deer.
Oh my God. Because they don't take bites, they swallow it whole, right?
Yeah, and their digestive juices, I guess, take care of it from there. Pretty amazing. Albert provides you the pictures.
Right there.
Yeah.
I have the real picture. I'm not going to show that one, but this is
we'll be demonetized if we show the actual picture, but you can.
I want to see what that looks like.
I mean,
that's not.
How does the mouth open that wide?
Yeah.
We have to. I think. Don't we have to show it?
No, that's how we not get our money, Kim. Let's get our money.
Kim doesn't care about.
I'll show you this after the show.
For the case of journalistic integrity, I think we need to see the real deal.
Google
Kim, you
and
don't
YouTube
get it.
doesn't
We
care
can't.
about our journalists. They just
exactly. Oh my God. All right. So quickly, we have to pick a favorite, and we do it this way. Again, the Florida guy posing as a security guard to sneak into the Taylor Swift concert. The Florida guy who was jailed on felony spaghetti throwing in an argument with his wife, and the python found eating a deer whole in Florida. I ask you for your favorite, please, Kim.
I'm going to go python v. deer.
Wow. Albert?
Yeah.
And it's got to be funny to tell people, why did you get into jail today, or how did you get locked up? I threw spaghetti at my wife.
And I like the security guy who is the fake security guard. So
there is no consensus. Wow.
Yeah. Please, it's like America. We can't get to a consensus. Let's vote in the you can vote in the chat. You can also vote in after hours. Most people check out the show after hours, so feel free to register your vote. We do look at all the comments, and that is Friday Fabulous Florida.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here. That's pure speculation. What's a little lie between friends?
Morning.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
This is a word from the Lord, and he is not happy.
Good day, sir.
Seriously, what the? Why are you yelling?
I feel like you're acting very unprofessional right now.
Thank you. It is great to have everybody here. We are on a remote broadcast today, but all of our normal stuff is happening, and thanks to everybody who is helping to pull it together. If you just joined us, I'm on the road today and Monday, but we'll do the shows from here as we've committed, as many others have with the election upcoming. We don't want to interrupt in any way the kind of conversations that we can have here on this show. Mark, thank you for carrying on remotely. I appreciate your commitment, my friend. Thank you, Luis. And Luis, because you are a Los Angeles Dodgers fan, I hope you'll be watching the World Series, and we're really excited to have been doing the World Series voiceover announce. I'm really excited. I think the first Super Tease that I've done it airs at just after 4 o'clock in the Pacific time zone, just after 7 in the East, and I've never done a World Series, as I mentioned, voiceover. I've done commercials that have aired on the Super Bowl. I've done commercials that have aired in the World Series, but never on the World Series network broadcast. So I'm really excited. It just happened at midnight last night that we got the word that it's going to be running today. So good luck to all of you. I've made him wait long enough. You're so great, Michael. I know this is hard because Michael is also on the road, and from some hallway somewhere in America, he's managed to power up. He's a great political mind, has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He joins us on Fridays to talk about the week in politics. How about it for the great Michael Shure, everyone? Come on now, come on.
Yeah. This will have to be our quickest visit in a while, Mark, but I'm glad I'm here. And of course, Louise is going to be watching.
I thought we were more.
I thought we were more. What's that?
I thought we were more open-ended than that, so I apologize for.
No, it's no worries. But Luis, I like how you say, I hope you'll be watching. He's a big Dodgers fan. I hope you'll be watching the World Series. Of course, he's going to be watching the World Series. He's a big Dodgers.
Is that what I said? I hope. Sometimes I'm not aware of what I'm saying.
Hope you'll be watching. And then I want to lodge one. And I know my time is short, so we will talk about politics in a second. But on Friday, Fabulous Florida, nobody should be throwing food. But I think it's very Florida-y. Mrs. Markel Royal, if they're married, it gets a little bit of credit in this Florida world for calling the cops because someone threw spaghetti at her. I mean, that's pretty Florida in and of itself.
That is true. You're right. So, you're under-heralded in that story is that she would call 911 because spaghetti was thrown.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why she gets my vote, and she gets a 10 from me.
D. Elliott says, wow, Michael is all cleaned up today. He looks good. You are cleaned up.
Well,
yeah. You have like a DMV photo today or something? Why are you all cleaned up?
I'm actually in the booth now.
That'll be great. Just one more second.
Right.
Well, Michael Shure, we were remarking in the first hour at the remarkable disproportionate way in which the media covers these two candidates. The presidential candidates are, one of them is this lawless guy, the other a former prosecutor and current vice president, who is constantly queried on any number of policy issues, whereas Trump is not queried particularly on policy issues, able to pivot to whatever, say whatever comes to mind, whatever. It's literal lunacy, really seems unmoored when it comes to trying to stay on track to any allegiance to facts. And more to the point, this week, and then, since you do join us weekly to kind of reflect on what revelations have and developments have occurred during the week, you have Mark Milley, who with in the war book that was done by Woodward. Yeah, thank you. And you also have the Atlantic article, which quotes Donald Trump's chief of staff, longest-serving chief of staff, as saying that he is an autocrat in waiting. He wanted to turn the military out on the streets of Washington and in the streets of America when he was president, and he sees him as a fascist I'm wondering if you can explain to me or in some way contextualize the way in which the media sort of blows by this, or maybe the media is covering it, but it doesn't seem to stick to this candidate.
I think it's more of the latter, right? I think there's something about this man. They used to call Ronald Reagan Teflon, but this is because nothing would stick to him. This takes it to an entirely new level, and it's unprecedented. And the real thing, Dan Quayle ran for vice president, and he misspelled potato, and there was a question of whether or not he was able to stay on the ticket, because how could somebody who misspelled potato in a classroom be smart enough to be vice president? And we're talking about now somebody who has done all the things that Donald Trump has done, both extrajudicially or using his power in a way that has never been used before, and threatening to use it, as John Kelly said. So I don't know the answer to that. When the book is written, I will look forward to reading that book unquestionably, because I think it is a compelling argument about how our country has veered in this direction where these things don't matter at all.
This is a really great thing, the last thing you just said, which is speaking to the way in which the country is so transfixed by the shiny object that Donald Trump is, the show that Donald Trump is. And you've spoken, because you've attended so many of these Trump rallies, and you've spoken before about how you were noticing that people weren't really there for policy or politics per se. They were there for the show, I remember you saying. And that made sense. And I'm wondering if America has kind of just shown up for a guy who's yelling about some stuff that they buy into. The immigrant thing is his big deal. He just, the mass deportation, et cetera. And otherwise, they're just around for the show to watch him smack talk the libs.
Yeah, well, that is it. I mean, it's seeing people taken to task who they don't like, right? And it's, the owning the libs thing is a big part of this. There's no question about it. And the other side of that is when you have a concerted, effective, you'd have to say brilliant in a disturbing way, plan to discredit candidacy in 2015, coining something called fake news, which we'd never heard before. Fake news was the Inquirer and the Globe at the checkout counter at the grocery store. But to say that everything is fake news, what it does is it creates a populace that has nothing to believe anymore. So they seek out the things that they want to hear and believe those things. So he's done a disservice that sort of transcends presidential politics. It has created an unnatural and skepticism about the work that honest people do. And are there mistakes made? There are mistakes made in pediatricians' offices too. But the crux of it is that people are, now doubting everything they hear constantly. Things that they hear from people who work very hard to get the story right.
That's, again, so interesting that it's so effective, as you suggested, to undermine first the media so that you now no longer need to own anything that instrument of information offers. So even as you say, good reporters and journalists work hard to try to corroborate every story. You have so undermined their credibility that you no longer need to own any of that information. So, to the point, when Kelly steps up, this is a guy whose son died in Afghanistan. He's a military straight arrow, and he doesn't want to get into a political conversation at all. The military loathes these kinds of situations, and yet, when he steps up and makes these remarks about how incompetent and how autocratic Trump is, you see it completely undermined by the fact that, he's a hack, and Trump just discounts everything reported by media and repeated by media.
And his people and his followers in Congress and the people that adhere to him because they've gotten success from it, they have to second that. They echo what he's saying. Even if they don't privately, they have to echo it in order to keep their jobs, because the people out in the field, the people that are voting for them, on Main Street, as it were, those people are buying it, and they are doubting it because Trump is saying they're doubting it. So I was asking several people about the cats and dogs things after the debate, and I would say, the people in Springfield, Ohio, the officers, the chief of police, the town manager, they all say this didn't happen, that this is fiction, this didn't happen. Well, Trump also said, and I saw someone taking a goose out of a pond. All the people I said this to said, well, what about the geese? And so there isn't any search for the truth that happens. He is the truth according to them, and that's what they go on. So this is not normal, right? I mean, this has not happened before in this way. Yeah, we all have, the ref is always against my team, right? There's a little bit of that, but there's never been somebody who gets off scot-free who actually hasn't gotten off scot-free, but yet still has, because he is none of the things that mattered that have affected him in courts or in Congress.
I'll address a couple of the comments in the chat here when we're done with Michael, or maybe if there's time, but I want to get quickly to something that I thought was significant, although I know endorsements may not carry. You've made this point before, because we talk about celebrity endorsements. We talked about a bunch of other endorsements with you, and you go, well, I don't know. Sometimes an endorsement matters. I think you mentioned that the Taylor Swift endorsement, because she was able to register so many new voters, might have been significant. But the newspaper endorsements, which used to really matter, I don't know that they do, because sadly newspapers, seem to be going away, and so interest in what's happening.
Well, they may have accelerated their departure today, actually.
Well, and so to the LA Times. The LA Times ran a complete and thorough recommendation and endorsement of a number of different propositions that face Californians, and it was a discussion and again endorsements of congressional races, etc. But when it got to top of ticket, when it got to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, they completely laid out. As a publication, the editorial staff did not endorse one or the other. Now, it should be quickly pointed out as well that the editorial staff did want to make an endorsement, but the owner of the paper bigfooted them and said, no, there'll be no endorsement for top of ticket. Your thoughts?
Well, one of the ironies is when people like John Henry bought the Boston Globe, and Jeff Bezos, the Washington Post, and Patrick Soon-Chung, the LA Times, like, oh, great, we're free of corporate ownership. These are people who want to create save the newspaper industry, basically, and save these jobs and save these reporters. And now, as you're seeing, and I don't know the background of the Washington Post and how they got to that decision. They didn't endorse for many years, but the Times one was particularly upsetting because they had already had their endorsement, and as you said, they endorsed other things. And then Soon-Chung pulled this endorsement. That to me is terrible. So the story is now endorsements I don't think matter as much in newspapers. They don't. But when this happens, when there's a circus outside the endorsement, then they matter. And then people start paying attention to it, and people get angry. And, Trump now has a narrative to say, they don't want to endorse. The reporters, the fake news people wanted to endorse Harris, but the real people want to endorse me, and they couldn't do it, And so it's a bad situation, and it's going to be looked at that way, I believe, but I don't know what the remedy is, and it's also too new to really be able to digest it. It's happening, is this our October surprise? It's a weak October surprise, but it is certainly surprising. And if they'd done this, if they had said 2 years ago or after the last election, we're no longer endorsing, okay, fair, but they didn't. And
on the October surprise thing, Michael, it just seems to me that there is we try to fit a bunch of different things into the October surprise box, and the reality is, I could say that his former chief of staff coming out and saying that Trump is wanted to use the military on Americans and on the streets of America, and the Milley revelations in Woodward's book, etc. These are all things that could fit into
any October. You're
surprising,
right. The October surprise is really a November surprise. If Trump loses, it's not a surprise, but that's the only thing that is going to affect this role. Donald Trump is losing. Nothing. He's proven at this point 10 days before another election, that, nothing affects me. But with that, Mark, I do have to go, I'm afraid.
We love you. Thank you.
I'm
You
glad
can
I
find
stopped
Michael
by.
across the TYT network, and we will see
And maybe
you.
we'll do
Michael,
this a
thanks
little
lot.
more in the lead up. We can talk about that, a couple of extra visits in the lead up to the election or something.
Yeah, definitely. We want to go. And on election night, are you on TYT, or what are you doing?
I'm going to be from 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. Eastern till 4 a.m. Eastern. Going to be on TYT covering this.
Cool. Well, we'll hope to get some word out of you during that time too. All right. See you, Michael.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Michael Shure, everybody. Yeah. Right on. Smash it like
Smashed it
like
with
a
your
boss.
iron rod.
Yeah. Smash that like button. That helps us in the world of YouTube, and I'm excited. And thank you to all our Patreon and PayPal supporters. Come on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Rock it out, Albert.
Who's Mark Thompson?
And this is their new home. Good day, sir.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Sayonara, sucker.
You cannot say you love your country.
Morning.
Where are my weed smokers at?
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
There's never been anything like this.
What can you tell us about the scene?
What he's got going here is a situation.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Big shout out.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Right on, everybody. Right on. Hey, thank you, everybody who has joined us in Patreon and PayPal. It's really how we stay on the air. It's a weird thing, but, we're a crowd-funded show, so it's sort of like that NPR PBS model, where you say, if you like this program, help keep it alive. Go to Patreon or PayPal and enter your information and become a monthly supporter of this very important community. TheMarkThompsonShow.com, Patreon or PayPal, there are hot links there. And as I was saying, there are hot links under every video. I don't know if I was saying it, actually, but I've just said it. So now I was saying it. Anthony is kicking ass, says Sausalito Steve. He is.
Yeah,
he's an ass kicker.
was.
Yeah. Great to have him. Great to have him on. So thank you for noticing, Sausalito Steve. Love my Sausalito. Used to live there. Great place. Just north, right over the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister. And I include Kim because I focus on Kim and constantly evaluate Kim and compare her, as all people should be compared to others, to Lucy McAllister.
Judgy much?
Every day I judge, and every day Lucy McAllister is the winner. So
Thank you,
Lucy
thank you,
McAllister,
thank
for
you.
yeah. Joey Marie says in her super chat, and thank you for the super chat. I'm 35. My peers and I are voting Kamala. We don't answer calls or texts or polls. So the suggestion is, hey, we're underpolled as a younger demographic. When I say younger, younger than, for example, the Fox News Channel demographic, or again, those who might be overrepresented in polls, if you want to think of it that way. Let me see. White Christian nationalism equals Iran and the Ayatollah. No Contendo says. Yeah, I think also if you want to talk about mullahs and you want to talk about white Christian nationalism, I think you are onto something. I think the mullahs and the theocrats are, they're carpooling to work every day. Okay, so SCOTUS is the conservative, radical, theocratic Supreme Court. They are the modern-day mullahs in America. And look at the way they're legislating. They're taking away women's reproductive freedoms. They're referencing Christianity in their decisions and the decision-making. And they're increasingly seeing to it that fealty to the Christian faith and traditional religious teachings is woven into American society and government. And that is absolutely antithetical to the way the society was set up, the way our government was set up, the way our nation is set up. This is supposed to be a secular nation. And still, we now have references to God, commandments, and more the teachings of traditional religion going into, as I say, government decision-making and our schools that are federally funded and funded also on the state level. Vivian Elshawa with a $10 super
shout out.
Big shout out. Thank you. Yeah. Love my Vivian Elshawa. I would like to welcome all our new trolls to the MT chat community. We love our trolls. You can continue to impress us with your Trump University education. Just no personal attacks. Thank you, Luis, for mentioning this, and thank you for the super chat. It is true. We love opposing opinions. We'll even take some trolls, but we really do not like, the flame-throwing and name-calling. We do not like that. Fox News is so effective, says Luis. They've convinced me not to vote for Joe Biden or Hunter Biden. Right on. No Contendo says, Kim, you'd be surprised. Most foreigners have more knowledge and understanding of American history and politics than natural-born Americans. Yeah, I think that's very true.
Well, what did they say? Most Americans couldn't pass the citizenship test?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think that's so true. Uncle Russ says, happy belated birthday to Blue Spark. $25. Wow.
Blue
Hey,
Spark.
happy birthday, Blue Spark. I didn't know.
Wonderful.
Big shout out.
That's
We would have gotten our Blue Spark banners out had we known.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Edward Lee says, I have two very important questions. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, let me sit up for this. First, how bad of a tummy ache is that python having right now? If you're just joining us in Florida news, we do a little Friday Fabulous Florida kind of between political stuff, just as a palate cleanser. And we had a story about a python eating a deer. That's what that's a reference to. First, how bad of a tummy ache is that python having right now? Second, does your voiceover gig give you free tickets? No, it does not, Edward. I do not get tickets to the game. But I will be on that World Series game. And shout out to my agent for helping me, read and audition for that. Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. My agent, Mike, is the man in Los Angeles. Peter Newton with a $5 super chat. Q for the Culture Blaster. That is a question for the Culture Blaster, and Culture Blaster is on deck. Is he ready to go? Good. Okay, we'll get right to him.
Yeah.
Was the final season of Succession predictive of what the election is about to become? Feel free to ask Shure, David K. Johnston. Well, that's... we can't ask Shure because I'm just seeing this now, but I can ask David K. Johnston maybe if there's time. I can certainly ask the Culture Blaster, who is in the on-deck circle. So Michael Reich says, and thank you for a $27.85 super chat, you guys have to vote for me. Dems don't even bother to run ads in Indiana. Is that right?
Wow.
That's really interesting. Didn't know that. Didn't know that. If you are in a swing state, meaning, I'll say the big three, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, my Kamala Harris commercials are running, I think. I'm the voice of a couple of those commercials. Yeah.
Wow.
So, But let me tell you, I'll read anything. If Trump had more money, I'd read a Trump spot. I'm kidding.
No, you wouldn't.
Wait, stop.
No, you wouldn't.
There's never been anything like this.
No, I wouldn't. I would not. I really wouldn't. I think I'd draw the line. There are two things on voiceover stuff. I draw the line at that. And fast food, as you know, if there's a fast food commercial, I always donate that money to an animal charity of some kind. I do not. I do not feed that. I won't take money advertising. With my voice on a fast food commercial, like McDonald's commercial. I'll always donate that money to animal activist causes. No Contendo, $2 super tech. Great question. BRICS versus a U.S. dollar under 45 versus Kamala Harris. This is interesting. This is an economics question about value of the U.S. dollar versus. Is that what that's getting to?
I don't know what BRICS are. So
it's a great question. I don't really understand it either, but I'll tell you what. I'll take a crack at it after the Culture Blaster is done, because right now I have to get to him. Right, Albert?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is Albert still with us?
Michael Snyder is standing by.
R. Derlin says, Mark. Again. You're looking way, way, way healthier with current lighting! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for noticing. I just, I don't know.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Big news this morning that Musk shut down Starlink over Ukraine and Taiwan at Putin's request. This is a thing. And again, I blame the media for not holding Musk's feet to the fire on this. Thank you, Sue-Ann, for this. Because Musk is he's a power broker worldwide, globally, that he's going to be serving in a Trump administration. I'm surprised that Trump got away with that declaration that this guy is so great and he's going to handle some kind of streamlining of government for Donald Trump and serve within this administration. I mean, I think it's reprehensible. I mean, it's un-American that you would bring somebody like this into your administration, but this is the new America. There's sort of a blind eye turned to this kind of thing. Rob Law said, just saw that Hannity called Stephen A. Smith after the interview last night and asked him for an apology. He asked him for an apology. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It's crazy. That is nuts. Yeah, we played a long cut, if you missed it, of Hannity and Stephen A. Smith.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. Kamala lied about working with Mickey D's. Outrageous. GOP would never stand for this. Love George Santos, says Louise. Yeah, very well done. All right, get me to the Culture Blaster. This guy is someone who is, he knows music, he knows movies, he knows streaming. He's remarkable. Subtitles, comic book movies, it doesn't matter. Marvel Universe, DC Universe, he knows it all. And he shares it with us on Fridays, and he comes and goes on a rainbow. How about it for the great Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster? Hi, Michael Snyder, Culture Blaster.
Mark, it's Halloween. I'm so excited. I won't be on the air with you again until November, so this is the time to reach out and say Happy Halloween to all. Let's keep it Halloweird, but if you're driving, don't do too much of the Halloween. That's all I'm going to say on that. Yeah, man, I'm excited about your World Series.
Do you dress up, Culture Blaster? Do you ever go out and I know you don't go trick-or-treating per se, but do you go to parties where you dress up as something?
Oh, yeah.
You don't seem like a dress-up guy. That's why I asked.
I am definitely going to. I'm in San Francisco until I guess this coming week, and I'm going to go to a soiree at the Cat Club. I'm going to a private party tomorrow night, being hosted. I don't want to tell tales out of school, but the great pop surrealist artist Isabel Samaras and her equally brilliant artist husband Marco Sorensen have an annual Halloween party. And this year's theme is Bring Out Your Dead. And so I'm going to show up. It's going to be easy. I just need to get the leather jacket. Joey Ramone. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The late punk rocker Joey Ramone will be making an appearance. So, yeah, absolutely.
I like that you've got a plan. I love that.
Yeah, I'm doing what I can.
What are we going as again? We're going as inmates, I think, right? Yeah, Courtney has a very simple, we're going to a party as well. We like simple stuff. So we're going as inmates.
You could go in your normal street clothes, and if people ask who you are, you can say, I'm a serial killer. You know, he looked just like everybody else on the block.
Tell us what you have for us, so great, Culture Blaster.
I will indeed. Let's start with a movie that I should be really excited about because I love the comic books, I love the superheroes and such. But Venom, The Last Dance, is the third movie in Sony's trilogy of films based on the Spider-Man adjacent anti-hero Venom. This movie continues the story of journalist Eddie Brock, who is taken over by an alien symbiote. And he has to share his body with this alien symbiote, which has incredibly, strong and otherworldly powers, and has a very bad attitude, thus the nickname Venom. And in fact, one of the other problems with the symbiote is he loves to eat brains. So it's a constant battle between Eddie and Venom to control Venom's appetites. And
this is the movie, by the way, I'll just mention that Kim was mentioning earlier in the week was crushing at the box office. I think it's already out there, right? I mean, it's doing some or maybe it was just forecast to do well. I forget which.
It was a forecast. It opened last night in some theaters. But this is the third movie in these Venom, the Venom franchise, if you will. And one of the situations that I find kind of daunting is it's a Marvel Comics character that is part of the Spider-Man deal that was made between Marvel and Sony before Marvel Studios was created and began their Marvel Cinematic Universe. And only recently did they go back to Sony and say, we'd like to incorporate Spider-Man, your new version of Spider-Man, in our movies. And they came to a shared deal in that regard. But these Venom movies, Mobius, the upcoming Kraven the Hunter, they're all Spider-Man villains that won't be specifically a part of this Marvel universe, but are looked upon by Sony as cash cows, ways to make money. And if Kim's elucidation of the forecast is right, Venom: The Last Dance will make some bucks. That said, the third time is not the charm here in this clunky
you don't like it.
Super anti-hero action and a bizarre buddy comedy, you know? I mean, it's
what's the problem with it, Culture Blaster? What is
look,
what's the issue?
First off, I want to say Tom Hardy gives his all as Eddie Brock, and he does the voice of Venom, which is a CGI manifestation. And I think he co-wrote the script with director Kelly Marcel. And I haven't been crazy about any of these Venom films. The mix of comedy and action and superheroics, it just is sort of uneasy. It's not really funny enough. But the other weird aspect about this film, which is set in the States, in the Americas, it features largely UK actors. Chiwetel Ejiofor, the great Chiwetel Ejiofor, plays an army commander at a secret base called Area 55, which is where they've collected a various kind of almost museum of symbiotes, and they're experimenting on them. And then Rhys Ifans plays kind of a hippie dad who's driving with his family through New Mexico looking for alien artifacts. Stephen Graham, you may remember him as Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire. He plays a detective who thinks that Eddie Brock is a killer, so he's on his tail. And in a Ted Lasso reunion of sorts, Juno Temple, who is the cute blonde from Ted Lasso, is here as a doctor of physics. I don't know. And Cristo Fernandez, Danny, the soccer player on Ted Lasso, you know, football is life. That guy, he's here as a bartender, and it doesn't matter because this stuff is just product. I wished it was better, but it's, you know, got a bunch of symbiotes going at one another in CGI fashion in the climax, and there's all this sound and fury. There's a villain named Null on another planet who was sent to symbiotes after Venom because he wants to be freed from his bondage. And dude, I love this stuff, generally speaking, but I've shrugged at this.
Wow. It's such a big movie, and it's forecast, they say, to do so well, and yet the Culture Blaster says pass on it. Man.
Well,
what else do you know?
If you're a completist, you're going to watch it, but it's in theaters and it's going to be available to stream sooner or later.
By the way, I think that is an invented word, but I really do like it, and it's the word completist. I am quite impressed, sir. Meaning, actually, if you want to complete the trilogy, is your point, then you want to watch it.
Right. Completist is actually a legitimate word in English, but, you know, whatever.
It's not fake.
Okay, then
That's
I'll give you
real.
another ding. Thank you. I've never heard it before.
Well, let's move on to movies I can actually cheer for, movies I can endorse heartily. We'll start with Conclave. Looks like awards bait, dude. Now, you know, whenever a pope nears death or dies, the entire papacy gets together. All the cardinals hang out in Vatican City, and they have sort of a vote. they're going to choose the next pope. And it's an election of sorts. And, how appropriate that conclave has come out in an election year, because it is about a situation that develops when a pope nears death, dies, and triggers this covert process, this selection of the new pope. And the cardinal
I have actually been, if I can just relate this, as I like to relate all things to myself.
What?
I have been to the room in which they hold the conclave and they elect the new pope. And the thing that surprised me about it, maybe others have been, and it's right there by the Sistine Chapel, literally the Sistine Chapel, you go through a door and then there it's connected to the Sistine Chapel. And the thing that's odd to me is that it's the least glamorous. It's kind of like a low-end, the bathroom that's there is like a low-end porta potty. I mean, that's how unglamorous the entire thing is. It's clearly designed to speed things along. You know how if you go to a restaurant and there are like no cushions on the seats and they don't want you there for more than an hour. They're trying to move you along. And I feel as though the basic physical environment of the room that they vote for the new pope in, that's the same. They want to kind of move the process along. Is that reflected in the film, Michael Snyder?
Not really. They have food service, and it's interesting. We presume that the priesthood means asceticism and all that stuff, but come on, they're wearing fancy ermine robes and jewels and what have you. Come on,
they do like
guys.
their costumes. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so Cardinal Lawrence, played by the great Ralph Fiennes in a Shure shot to get some kind of nomination, is in charge with this selection. Oh, by the way, when you were there, did you see any old ballots laying around from previous pope elections?
I did not. No.
Oh, well, I thought that would have been a nice souvenir. Anyway, so they're all gathered there and they're going to make the choice. And obviously, like an election, there is lobbying and there are favorites and there are guys that go, if chosen, I will not run. And that character, that cardinal, is played by the great Stanley Tucci. The one who's doing kind of backroom manipulations is played by John Lithgow. So you got Fiennes, Lithgow, and Tucci. You're dealing with the upper echelon of actors. They're terrific. The script is really, really smart, written by Peter Strawn. And the director, Edward Berger, is the guy who directed last year or 2 years ago's foreign film winner, All's Quiet on the Western Front, the German director. And it's a smart script. It's got tension. And this pope who passed away has secrets. He's invited a Latin American priest who has been stationed in Kabul to come to this covert vote. And no one understands why. And as the movie unspools, we eventually learn what the situation is. I thought it was smart. I thought it was provocative. I give a high recommendation to Conclave.
Wow, that's terrific. I like that you like it. All
it's
right,
in theater.
And that's Ralph Fiennes and who?
Stanley Tucci, and obviously we love John Lithgow. He plays a great Rudy Giuliani on the Colbert Late Show, but he's also a nice, sinister cardinal in this movie.
Wow, cool. God, I can't imagine that you're saying that the Pope that has just passed away, that they're replacing, had secrets, which is an amazing leap when you think about the Catholic Church, because they typically, they're pretty transparent about everything going on. Anyway, go ahead. What's next?
By the way, Lithgow is like the Ted Cruz of Cardinals. That's all I'll say about him.
Scott says, dude, this movie sounds super boring. I'm sorry, but it does. Is it super boring, Culture Blaster? Could you be recommending a film that could bore us in any way?
Go see Venom: The Last Dance, buddy. This movie's not for you if it sounds super boring. It's not.
Well, is it like 12 Angry Men kind of thing, where it takes place in the room? You know what I mean?
Like 12 Angry Cardinals? No, it's not. It opens up a little bit to the rest of the Vatican. I don't think it's for that particular member of the audience, and I'm glad.
All right, moving on. What do you have?
That. Yeah. Here's another one you won't like, Scott. Now, it's one of my favorite films of the year. I love this film. It's called Honora. Let me tell you about it, Mark. I love this movie. Indie filmmaker Sean Baker is the guy behind it. And he's produced a string of really impressive low-budget cinema verite style movies that are set in, I don't know, I'll call it modern hard times. I mean, I'll give you examples. In 2015, he did Tangerine, which he actually shot on iPhones, and it follows the struggles of a transgender sex worker and her need to survive on the mean streets of Hollywood. In 2017, he did The Florida Project, wherein a 6-year-old girl and her unemployed mom try to find shelter in the vicinity of Orlando's Walt Disney World. And in 2021, he did a very amusing but dark movie called Red Rocket about an aging porn star returning to his small Texas hometown after running out of options in Los Angeles. They're all really smart and really impactful. This guy is talented. So writer-director Baker's modus operandi is to lay bare like pivotal moments in the lives of marginalized individuals. That's his deal. And his latest movie, Enora, continues that approach, but it does so in a more assured and I'll call it narratively potent fashion. And it's given heart and soul by a stirring lead performance from actress Mikey Madison as the title character. In fact, Enora is probably Baker's best work to date and actually won the Palme d'Or. That's the grand prize at this year's Cannes Film Festival. You know, for an American indie filmmaker, that's amazing. And wow. This is also sure to boost Madison's career. She is fantastic.
Let me just, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Is Mikey Madison somebody who we should know? What else has she been in?
He's done small roles here and there. I mean, when I saw that the lead actor was someone named Mikey, I thought, that's what my exes call me. I'm Mikey. What the hell?
Sure,
but
sure.
It is, in fact, this wonderful young actress. And she is so good as Annie, which is shortened from her given name, Enora. She's a Brooklyn exotic dancer working in a gentleman's club where she meets Vanya, played by Mark Eilishin. He's the young, privileged, and feckless son of Russian oligarchs, and he has been living in their New York area home, a very extensive McMansion, while they are living in Russia. So he can do whatever he wants. So he goes to the gentleman's club. He is smitten by Annie, and in fact asks her to spend a week with him, and as his escort. And she agrees, and they go to Vegas, and they have a quickie marriage, an impulsive quickie marriage. This makes his parents back in Russia go bonkers when they hear about it. They're told by their henchmen in New York that he has married a prostitute. So all hell breaks loose. There's this amazing kind of chase through the Manhattan, Brooklyn, Long Island area. I just love this movie. Madison plays it sexy, downtrodden, furious, righteous, and funny, depending on the situation. And you cannot take your eyes off her, which is good since she's on screen for most of the movie. High marks to Enora, which is currently in theaters. And it's a limited run, but I know it's going to expand out, and I know it's going to be a terrific thing to watch when streaming as well.
Wow, so you really agree with the Palme d'Or committee. You think it's a winner?
Yeah, I've been a fan of this guy's work for years, as I expressed, and yes. I think that this is his most accomplished movie. And Mikey
Sean
Madison,
Baker's movie Enora is a big one. Get a big thumbs up from the Culture Blaster. Oh, great Culture Blaster. What else do you have for us?
I have Your Monster. Your Monster is sort of an anomaly in ways. It is opening in limited theaters, select theaters. And as Letterman used to say, I hope to God your theater is selected. But it's a mix and a mashup of a horror movie, a musical, and a romantic comedy. And it stars Melissa Barrera, who I think was in a couple of Scream movies. And she is an actress named Laura. And she comes down with a form of cancer and has to go into the hospital for an operation. And at that juncture, the boyfriend with whom she has been collaborating on a musical kind of based on her life dumps her. And she gets out of the hospital and she's at home at the house her mother lived in. Her mom passed away and she doesn't know what she's going to do with herself. She's heartbroken. She doesn't know how she's going to, get involved in this play, this musical that was so important to her. and she decides she's going to audition. And while this is going on, she reconnects with the monster under her bed when she was a little girl, the monster from the closet. Turns out that there's really a monster, and he is drawn out by her misery, and they reconnect. He's real, they reconnect. So it turns into sort of a Beauty and the Beast sort of thing with original music, and she decides she's going to audition, and that sets a series of events in motion and revelations. And I thought it was pretty charming. And I thought Barrera was good. I thought Tommy Dewey as the monster was really good. Edmund Donovan as the a-hole boyfriend who fancies himself an auteur and doesn't know really what to do about his ex-girlfriend coming to audition for the play that she was so much a part of. Your Monster, I enjoyed it. It's the most Kim-friendly movie I think we've talked about today.
I see. She could bring the family to that, you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty charming. It's not great, but I thought as a debut, it's the first film written and directed by Caroline Lindy, and I think it's very promising. I want to wrap up with something that comes straight from Michael's True Crime Corner. What do you say, buddy?
Okay, go ahead.
It's called Woman of the Hour, and it is continuing Netflix's hot run of original feature films that are as good as anything you'd see in a movie theater, and in some cases better. First, Rebel Ridge, then His Three Daughters, and now Woman of the Hour, which in fact can be seen on Netflix right now, and was directed by the movie star Anna Kendrick. It's her first attempt at directing, and it's based on the actual story of a serial killer who ends up as a bachelor on the dating game in the 70s. And the woman, a wannabe actress who is the bachelorette who gets to choose the three guys, from the three guys, chooses bachelor number 3, who is the serial killer. And of course, no one at the dating game or anywhere else knows that that's the case. This
and by the way, Bachelor number 3 would have been a better title for the movie, but all right, I get it.
Yeah, whatever you want to say. Talk to screenwriter Ian McAllister McDonald about that, would you? And in the meantime,
anyway, continue. This is I think Courtney talked about this film. I mean, rather this story. You're absolutely right. This is the dating game murderer. Yeah.
Yeah, he apparently killed scores of women, and men as well, perhaps. I don't know. They eventually, I don't want to reveal much about it other than to say we see various incidents in the killer's swath of violence, and then we see him on the dating game, and the tension as she ends up choosing this guy is palpable. And I have to say,
great.
Kendrick is good. The guy who plays this murderous bastard, an actor by the name of God, what is the guy's name? Daniel Zovato. It's not somebody I know very well, but he did a great job here. And the only other familiar actor in the movie besides Anna Kendrick is Tony Hale of Veep fame and various other things, playing essentially the MC of the dating game. They kind of fictionalized the guy who we knew for many years as the dating game host. I don't know why. Maybe his family objected. And to respect him, I won't even repeat his name here. But all right, Jim Lang. Anyway, it was actually a very entertaining.
Jim Lang was a DJ in San Francisco, by the way. A lot of San Francisco viewers and listeners.
That was his name,
to
right?
The show.
He was the host of the dating game, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, kudos to me. Anyway, I enjoyed it. You can watch it on Netflix. And,
kudos to me should be something. I don't know what, but I mean,
is it great? No. Is it worth watching? Absolutely. Absolutely worth watching.
I love our visit. Woman of the Hour is the movie to which Michael has just referred, and he really likes it. It's the dating game killer. And he, as it turns out, Michael notes that he sadly murdered a lot of people. And Courtney, I think, has detailed, or at least has referenced the have you done the dating game murderer on our show yet or not?
No, I just talked to my boyfriend Matt Murphy.
Oh yeah, she just spoke to Matt Murphy about the that was a different segment. Anyway, I digress. But Woman of the Hour, it's on Netflix and it's streaming now, right, Michael?
Yes, indeed. It's in some theaters as well. So wait a minute. So I beat Courtney to the punch on this. It is truly
You beat
Michael's
Courtney to the
Crime
punch
Corner.
on this, yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you are with the Culture Blasters True Crime Corner. Your monster is the Monster Under the Bed movie that feels a little like Beauty and the Beast. It has charm. It has a warmth to it. Michael really liked it, and he recommends it for Kim McAllister's family.
I'm interested. Yeah.
Kim McAllister's family needs that warmth, and it needs.
I blame you.
Maybe it's my fault that they need it.
It's not great, but it's absolutely charming and diverting. And Melissa Barrera is wonderful, as are the other members of the cast.
Yeah,
nice. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, nice job. Now, Anora is the Sean Baker movie. Michael regaled us with his love for Sean Baker movies, but he also added that perhaps this film, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, may be Sean Baker's best, featuring Mikey Madison in a stirring performance, as the Culture Blaster said, and he feels that this may be the beginning of Mikey Madison's breakout career. So if you want to get in on the ground floor and see a good movie, very well recommended by our Culture Blaster, Anora is your pick. It's in theaters.
Yeah,
Conclave.
It has that criminal vibe too, because you're dealing with these hard men coming after her and all this other stuff. It was fun, boy. On top of everything else, it was fun to watch.
Conclave is the vote for Pope, and Ray Fiennes is in this one. Stanley Tucci's in this one. John Lithgow is the evil cardinal. Sounded like Michael really liked it. Scott in our chat says no way he's going to this. Sounds boring to him. But Conclave, Michael says it's a taut drama with some great actors going at it and really laying it out. It is in theaters. And Venom, The Last Dance, featuring Tom Hardy, the third in the series. And if you're a completist, as Michael Snyder has noted, then you should jump on this. But otherwise, he feels it will leave you cold. It'll leave you short. It'll leave you wanting. It'll just leave you. And so he says, till death do they part, Venom, the latest Venom film, it's a pass. Culture Blaster, what a journey we've taken together today.
One can only hope that it is The Last Dance. Let's put it that way.
I've enjoyed it. I love our time together. Are you back in studio next week?
I am, and I don't know whether you'll be. As a matter of fact, I got to say about this World Series, it's one of those where I wish everybody lost. Could that happen?
How dare you? How dare you?
I also same sentiment from me, Michael.
It's sad. When my voiceover is featured in the World Series ramp up, I won't stand for the World Series to be besmirched in any way. I strike you down for even suggesting it.
How is it that they hate the Dodgers more than they love you?
Exactly. This is what's wrong with America. You people love to hate, and that's why you're voting Trump, because he hates the same stuff you do, or because he's a hateful creature, or he spews hate, and you like hate. You like the hate. It's a bizarre thing. Love and hate, the thin line. It's brutal.
When it comes to this sort of thing, my motto is ABD, anybody but Dodgers. I will grudgingly root for the Yankees.
You are the huge soda of voiceover, says Luis. Congrats on the World Series gig, Mark. Go Dodgers. All right, well, there you go, Michael. That balances out the hate for the Dodgers from Albert and from the Culture Blaster. He comes and he goes on a rainbow. He's the Culture Blaster, everybody. Thank you, Culture Blaster.
Happy Halloween and go Niners.
Happy Halloween, go Niners. You just heard it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Mark, you forgot the super sticker question. What was the super sticker question, says Phineas. Anybody know? Albert, do you know? I forgot the super sticker question.
It was the one for Michael, if he is still here, about Succession, I think.
Oh, I did. Michael, are you still there?
Yeah.
This is in an addendum
Michael,
to what we...
Are you still here?
Are you still there? Michael,
No.
you still there or not?
I don't think he's here.
Well, let me just make you feel better about the fact that Michael's not there. what the hell do you care his opinion on succession and whether or not it's really any way predictive of the political fortunes of, you see what I'm saying?
People care about
Succession,
what Michael Snyder has to say. Come on.
Please don't contradict me, Kim, at the end of the show. I find it, I will tell you that they care about what he has to say about movies. But what I would suggest to you is that Succession was clearly, and I think it was almost expressly noted while it was running, it was the Murdoch family. It was essentially the Murdoch family. So I think other comparisons don't quite, but I am really just filibustering in a way because I did forget the question. So I'm sorry. But I blame Albert for that, actually. Albert should have...
Albert, thank you.
Should have told me. And then I blame Kim after
Kim, how are
that.
you?
Right. So there is that. And
I blame you.
And Kim blames me. So there's enough blame to go around. Quickly note, as we finish up here, Albert, don't we have to finish up?
Yes.
Kim, we didn't really get any news from you today.
No, and can I just, before we go, I just want to tell you one thing locally in California is, do you remember all those people, I think there were 6 of them, I know there were 6 of them, that were fired because they wouldn't get the COVID vaccines.
Sure, they were BART employees.
They were BART workers. They were fired from BART. They sued BART. And it turns out yesterday they were awarded between $1.3 and $1.5 million each. A federal jury says they should be paid. They had claimed religious exemptions for the vaccine mandate, but they were not accommodated to go remote or to get testing. Many of them have been denied their requests on the eve of Thanksgiving. Oh, the horror.
What?
And so they have a court victory. Those 6 workers that were fired from BART are getting more than $1 million each.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it.
I'll tell you that the scam that is the religious exemption, it is a scam.
I know.
Give me another story while I sneeze.
Okay, because I do have to tell you about Tenuta Vineyards as well. And you know what I'll do is, gosh, I have so many important stories, but how about this one? I don't know if you heard that the Ohio judge has ruled, or an Ohio judge has ruled their state's 6-week abortion ban is unconstitutional. Yeah, the ruling came yesterday from the Hamilton County Judge Christian Jenkins. He granted a permanent injunction on Ohio's heartbeat bill until voters have had a chance to weigh in. The bill was signed into law in 2019, didn't take effect until 2022 when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. So the judge says, nope, not doing that. Also, President Biden is expected to formally apologize for the United States government's role in those Indian boarding schools. He'll do it during a speech in Arizona. Over 150 years, the United States government either managed or paid religious groups and churches to operate these awful boarding schools in at least 40 states across America, trying to remove Native American children from their homes and assimilate them and take away their language and their culture and everything else. So,
well, they assimilated them and they abused them. They killed them. There are literally... this is it's a one more chapter in the ugliness that is the way that America treated Native peoples. And by the way, it extends beyond America. As you know, Native peoples have been mistreated across the globe, but just north of the border, Canada has some of the most egregious examples of this. I mean, grotesque examples of this. They killed kids by the scores. All right. They abused them and killed them. This is while they were attempting to literally beat the language and traditions of Native peoples out of them and force them to become these, they wanted them to be God-fearing, their God, their religious doctrines, and they wanted them to become westernized, for Americanized or Canadianized, however you want to think of it. But it is a brutal chapter, and I'm sure Trump and his people, and maybe largely the GOP, would say, you never apologize. We're America, and we shouldn't apologize ever.
Come on. An apology doesn't seem like it's enough.
That's exactly right. It is a huge, embarrassing, horrible chapter in America's history, and there really is sadly a lot more to the way we treated Native peoples. But you don't have to go much past these, quote, boarding schools, which were prisons and institutions for corporal punishment and for death. They were death camps for many of these kids. Horror shows, not to mention all the other kinds of abuse that you can imagine. So bravo, Joe Biden. Bravo for having the courageous instinct to apologize to these natives. It costs you nothing to apologize to these native peoples, and yet it's important symbolically. So bravo.
Also, I want to throw this story down. There's a federal judge that is striking down Virginia's efforts to remove non-citizens from its voter rolls. This is something that we've talked about a lot on this show with Greg Palast and you. Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin vowed to immediately fight the ruling in court after it was announced this morning the Department of Justice sued the state, saying the effort violates federal election rules. The Biden-nominated judge ordered the state to reinstate more than 1,600 people to the voter list. Joe Biden won Virginia by 10 points over Trump in 2020. So, and this report...
Again, voter disenfranchisement. By the way, Mark, can you do a dating show with the Menendez brothers, asks Phineas. No. Yeah, I don't see that happening. That is a huge ruling by that, and as David Katz noted and predicted, Gascon in Los Angeles is suggesting that there be a resentencing of the Menendez brothers, which is really code for letting them go after. And when I read that, and that they have paid their debt to society, is what Gascon said, again, it's nauseating. I mean, I'm nauseated with every turn. How can you permit these people who, on multiple shotgun blasts, killed their parents, okay? As she crawled away, the wife, Kitty Menendez, they shotgun blasted her again to make sure that she was dead. It's even more gruesome than that, and I've just told you a really gruesome kind of recounting of the events generally. It's even way more gruesome. And they bought with cash the shotguns, as you know, and then, of course, they spent their parents' money in hugely high-profile ways. And we had your boyfriend, Matt, what was his name on? Matt Murphy, who said, give me them again, I'll try them in front of a jury, and I will convict them. It's total BS, the abuse, etc. It is no excuse, and they deserve, I just can't believe he said they paid their debt to society. They shotgun blasted their parents to death. You tell me exactly, and I don't care how long they've been in prison, 30 years, 40 years, whatever. That's not paying your debt to society. But I should say, in fairness, I think a lot of their family came forward. Isn't it true, Kim? I think relatives stepped forward and tried to speak on their behalf. But what a utter madness is associated with that Menendez decision. Anyway,
I don't want to end it on death and murder. So you get to
give me something hopeful.
Pick Dodgers, vegans, or Halloween.
I'll go vegans.
Vegans. A California vegan restaurant back in the spotlight. Yeah, Yelp. Naming it the best in the nation after ranking it the best place to eat in Los Angeles last year.
I'm loving it.
Restaurant is called Lil Veggery, and it is in Redondo Beach. It opened 2 years ago. Lil Veggery, the chef says their mission is to make vegan food quick, clean, and delicious. Lil Veggery, best in the nation. Yep, there you go.
Very nice. Thank you.
Sponsored by Tenuta Vineyard in Livermore. You have to say smash it with your iron rod. You can write it in an email.
You can with your iron rod.
Call them up, but it gets you 10% off of the wine, and it gets you 10% off of the I Love Lucy Grape Stomp. There are more Sunday dates for the Grape Stomp in November. The spots fill up really fast, so check in with Rich at Tenuta Vineyard, 925-699-4576, or you can email him rich at Tenuta, Tenuta vineyard.com, rich at tenutavineyard.com. And again, the Grape Stomp, so much fun. You have the welcoming mimosa, the fancy lunch spread, the personal harvest from the vineyard, and then the stomping in the bucket. So pretty fun.
I've never seen anything like it.
I'm looking forward to another visit. Courtney and I went there. I've got a bunch of, I bought the sparkling wine. I bought the, of course I bought the Why Are You Yelling Red and the Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson? Pinot.
Right.
Pinot Grigio. But they have so many different varietals. There's the Mark Thompson, Why Are You Yelling Red? It's 40% Petit Syrah.
So
it's
good.
got some cab in there. Really great.
Oh.
Anyway, go enjoy Tenuta in person or just reach them over the phone or through their website. Terrific winery. And there are a lot of great technologies and innovative technologies that they've used to curate and to create the great tasting that they have with their wines. So definitely check them out. And you get, as noted, you get the discount with the Smash It
with your iron rod.
That's the phrase that pays. Smash it with your iron rod, everybody. That's it. Tenuta Vineyards. And they're in Livermore, and you can call them. 925-699-4576. And I can't stop talking like this because it's the phrase that pays. Smash it with your iron rod. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate that. And right back.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let's quickly just say thank you to everybody who stopped through our show today.
Mm-hmm.
We're considering doing an election night show that would start around 8 o'clock. 11 o'clock in the East, 11 p.m., 8 p.m. in the West. We're considering it. So do stay tuned for more information on that. It would feature a lot of our regulars kind of floating through for a few minutes, and we would all react to the news together. I just got my recent Coachella Valley coffee order. Love the Sumatra. We love our Coachella Valley coffee. Courtney is addicted to a few things. She loves the tea, and she also loves the cold brew. She cannot get enough of the cold brew. When it comes to fake information, I heard that the UK cracks down on fake info. Ask Anthony how that's done. Well, let me just answer that. I know Anthony's not here yet, but quickly just give me 15 seconds. They have much tougher libel laws in Britain than do we. You can say pretty much whatever you want. We're really slavishly loyal to free speech and the First Amendment here. There, you kind of have to show your math if you smear somebody. And so I think that's maybe what you're talking about. If you're discussing the influence of Christianity on the uneducated, you are not getting real, say cousin. If you're not discussing the influence of Christianity on the uneducated, then you're not getting real, said cousin Erie. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Anthony Davis, your best guest. Couldn't agree. He's, Teresa Morelli says, kind of what I think was the best guest, but definitely he rings the bell every time he comes in. Trump will win regardless if you like him or not, says Mars. Quit calling people idiots. That's not nice, Kim. You're dividing Americans.
What? Oh, Mars. Whatever.
What? I would say this, Mars. Maybe you should look toward Trump. And if you want to look for name calling, nobody calls people idiots like your Lord and Savior, Trump. Okay, so you may call Kim out. I don't know if she said idiots. I'm sure she did. But the point is, Trump is the gold medalist of smack talking and calling people names. So how dare you, Mars, besmirch Kim? Do not insult my Kim. That is my job to insult Kim, not your job to insult Kim. Rob Law said, just saw that Hannity called Stephen A. Smith after the interview last night and asked him for an apology. He asked him for an apology. I think we got that. The government should pull Musk's contracts, says Tess. The government, and this is my point about Elon Musk, they cannot pull Musk's contract. Do you understand? They need Musk. Musk, and this is the problem, he has captured our government already. He is an oligarch with power in government already, immense power. And it's not just our government, it's worldwide. And so it leaves us in a very tough situation. And Trump gets into power, forget it. Musk will be unbridled power. Scott, I did hear that Musk did want to shut down Starlink, but government talked him out of it because Ukraine depends on it. That was an older story, I think, says Gordon. I haven't seen anything new on him shutting down Starlink. And I know somebody mentioned that he would shut down Starlink, but I haven't been able to find anything on that. So this Anthony Davis is a wise man, says Klaus B. Nilsson. Yes, he is a European, as I am. It seems we have a more clear way of seeing the difference between a good man and an evil man. In Sweden, Trump would be in prison, says Klaus. You know something? I have two things to say. First of all, I don't know whether he'd be. The Swedish seem to be pretty smart, and I think it, in general, is a more educated population, and I think you would maybe see through this. it's not hard to see through this. As I've always said, I think that Trump's con is a clunky con. I think he's been aided by media and some of the stuff we've talked about here, which is associated with the fact that he's a good show. He's media friendly. And so he's not really held to account for a lot of the stuff he says. But having said all of that, I do think we give Europe a lot of credit that they deserve. But I also think that we give Europe a lot of credit that they don't deserve. Because, as I recall, some pretty nasty people emerged out of Europe. Hitler comes to mind. Mussolini comes to mind. Stalin comes to mind. So now the Europeans may have learned from their history, although I'd suggest again, if you look at recent history, in France, Le Pen comes to mind. There are right-wing fascistic dictators in waiting in all countries. But, Klaus, with all of that said, I think on balance, I agree. I don't think Trump would have been able to get away with this crap in Europe. So there you go. I'm going to need a lot of moral support on election night, says Elise. Please, yes, do a show. Forget election night, CNN. I'm going to the Mark Thompson show, says Mark. Wow, love that. We can all get pass-out drunk together, says John. Wow. Well, good stuff. It's, what can I say? It's a tough spot we find ourselves in.
The Mark Thompson Show.
But what I know that I'll be doing is I'll be checking out the After Party Live, which is Kim's thing. Albert, do you have any closing comments on this Friday? Very nice job curating a short Friday Fabulous Florida for us.
No, it's a really good show. And the Anthony Davis, if you missed it, it was really good. It was a little extended, so I might chop it in half for the breakout, but it was very good.
Yeah, that's Albert is 100% right. We'll drop that as a video, and that extended conversation with Anthony Davis is something that people seem to really like. So I'm hoping that you jump on it, and we'll drop it as a separate video, as I say, for your convenience. Please share it across Facebook, across social media, wherever you go. Send it to friends, text it to people. You know, be obnoxious about sharing our show. It helps basically broaden our footprint, and that's really the only way we grow an audience. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Monday, we have a Broadway producer joining us.
For the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We have a big slate of guests for next week.
Bye-bye.
But alas, we are out of time. Until Monday, we'll see you. Bye-bye.